ladies and gentlemen, we are actually going to get the ball rolling here, or the show on the road, or any one of those phrases, whatever you want to use. Thanks for coming out tonight, folks. Thanks for coming out and seeing live entertainment. I know how easy it is to just stay home and do nothing. Yeah, I actually thought about doing that tonight myself, so came on out here, which is good. I'm just going to set these here because nobody's sitting in the front row, so I'll just put that stuff there, and it's totally fine, though. That makes the second row the front row, just so you guys know. My name is Dave Pokorny. I am your host, producer, whatever else you want to call me, and I'm sure some of you have called me many other things. So it's nice to be here. We are at Sonoma Valley Portworks, my favorite place on 2nd Street in Petaluma. So there you go. And this is WestSide Stories. By applause, how many people have not been to WestSide Stories before? By applause. Oh, good. That's a little bit of a new turnout. That's really nice. And then on the other side, by applause, how many people have been? Thanks for all of you making the trek out. I know we're actually a little bit light tonight, which is totally fine. That means everybody's story you will get to tell your story. I think we have 6 or 7 people have thrown their name in the hat, which means all of you will be chosen. That's not an issue at all tonight. Let me tell you what we do here. Those of you that have not been here before, these are 5-minute true stories told live on this tiny little stage, told without notes, and they are based on the theme. Tonight's theme is reluctance, like the people who were sitting in the front row. Reluctance. And tonight's theme is reluctance. I chose reluctance this month because I thought of Halloween. I know we're a long way away from Halloween still, but I just thought, you know, don't go in the house, don't go in the forest, don't go in the WestSide Stories, don't go in the whatever it is. And so that's what why I came up with reluctance for this month. We are here the first Wednesday of every month. Next month, our theme will be art, which is pretty broad, and you are able to do what you will enjoy. What will happen here tonight is people's name will get pulled out. Those of you that don't know, people's name will get pulled out, and I will stall a little bit. They'll get to relax and know that they're on their way up, and then they'll get to come up here and tell their 5-minute story. And these are stories. They are not political rants. They are not comedy routines. They are not therapy, okay? These are stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end of the evening, all those little green tickets that you were actually issued, at the end of the evening, I will pull one of those out. The person whose I pull will choose who their favorite storyteller was for the evening, and that particular storyteller will walk away with a cold $50 cash in their pocket. So, I know, what the heck? And that'll work out great for someone here this evening. Let's see, tell you a little more about this. When my wife and I went to New York, we went to the Moth in New York, and we saw this form of Story Slam there. We went on their website and saw that they were wanting people to branch out and do them all over the country, and they had 4 at the time. There was Brooklyn, New York, there was Los Angeles, Detroit, and Chicago, and I figured why not Petaluma? So here we are, and we've been going. This officially is our 24th month. Yeah. 2 solid years right here. Thank you guys for coming out. I mean, everybody says November is when we started, but if you count the months out, October makes it the 24th consecutive month, and thanks to you guys, we are going strong. Tonight we have PCA filming us once again, which is great. Christine, thanks for coming out here. They edit those and they put them on PCA, public access here in Petaluma, and you can watch the shows. You can tell your friends too. You can tell them it's better live, though. That's what you can tell them. And we're also audio recording for NPR, KRCB in Roanoke Park, and we are working with them to try and get this show broadcast on NPR. And so, but we got to get those people to come out too, for crying out loud. You know, if everybody stays home and listens and watches, it's just me here. That's not very good. So that's what we're doing here. The storytellers are in there. The little things that you were given, the little strips of paper, they're for in-between storytellers. They are completely anonymous, and I will read those in between. I will pull a name of who the next storyteller is, and they don't have to come running to the stage. But I will read 1 or 2 of those in between, so it gives them a little chance to catch their breath and go, oh my God, it's me. And relax, folks. We're gentle here, especially if it's your first time. We're very gentle. And It's really easy. Tonight, reluctance. I have a story about reluctance. It's not really my reluctance. It's my daughter's reluctance. I have two. I have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, but this is mostly about the 17-year-old because the 13-year-old hadn't been born yet. So there you go. We found out that we were going to have a baby, and I think it was December of 1994. And we just decided that we were going to do it the right way, all natural. Everything was going to be all natural. We were going to do, incense burning, James Taylor music playing, not hooked up to any machines, no drugs, nothing. We were going to do it the right way. And so what we did is we went to a birthing coach. I don't know if anybody's heard of these, and I'm not going to give out her last name. I loved her. She was fantastic, but her name was Michonne, and which is a perfect name for a birthing coach, isn't it? Michonne. And we found her, and we went to her, and we put together a birthing plan of how everything was going to go, because of course we're in control. Right? And the baby started to grow, and we would go back to Michonne every month, and she would reassure us that everything was going to be great. You just follow this plan, and you guys are in control. The doctor's going to tell you this, but this is your birthing plan. You give them the birthing plan, and you tell them the way you want this to work out. And we went in for our monthly checks with the nurse practitioner, and on. We presented our birthing plan, and the bottom line on the birthing plan was that this baby was going to come the way that we wanted it to come, and that the best part about it, I believe, was that my wife was not going to have a baby that was too big for her to deliver. That was key, okay? That was very key, right? And that was a phrase that we used over and over and over again as she got bigger and bigger and bigger. And August, the due date was August 16th, and as we were getting closer and closer, is that your birthday or something? Is that
my son's and their niece?
Yeah, my daughter, again, I will remind you, reluctance is the key here. So August 16th is not her birthday, I'll tell you that right now. So anyway, as we get closer and closer, we keep going back to Michonne, and we know that we've got our James Taylor music, we've got our incense, we're not going to be hooked up to machines, there will be no drugs, and we are not going to have a baby that is too large for her to deliver. That's not going to happen. And we keep going back, and we end up with this kind of young, smug doctor who's checking in on us. And I remember specifically, I don't remember all of the appointments, but I do remember one specifically when he walked in, and Juliet was probably 8 months pregnant at the time, and he walked in and washed his hands real quick, and then walked over and just kind of put his hands right on her stomach and went, "It's a 10-pound baby right there." And he turned around and walked out of the room. Well, what the hell is that guy doing? He's an idiot. There's no way. Because we have a plan. And she will not have a baby that is too big for her to deliver. Again, says Michonne. Okay. So we continue to go, and as we get closer and closer to the due date, they're telling us, you should probably induce because this is a pretty big baby right here. No, because we have a plan, and we will not have a baby that is too big for her to deliver. Due date rolls up and nothing. Michonne, however, has us start taking cod liver oil. When I say us, I mostly mean her, because I didn't really take any cod liver oil. But I was there, rooting her right on, and did the cod liver oil and took nice long walks around the building or the apartment we lived at in San Francisco, and still nothing. A week goes by, and we go in, and that doctor says, "That's a big baby, you should induce." And we're like, "No, we are not going to do it this way. We're going to stick to our plan. We've got our incense, we've got our James Taylor, and we're ready to go." Okay? Well, if it gets to a certain date, which is 2 weeks past the due date, then we're going to have to induce. It's the way that we have to do this. When it turns out we get to that date, because now, in the back of my mind, I'm pretty sure this may be the first time she's ever hearing this, but I began to doubt the plan. I began to doubt that we would not have a baby that was too big for her to deliver. But, I stuck with the plan. I was a trooper. We finally, it gets to be August 29th, I believe is what it was. August 29th. We're 13 days past the delivery date, or the due date, and we check into the hospital. And they're going to put her on a very small dosage of Pitocin, which is supposed to induce labor. And so they hook her up, and we're walking around on the maternity ward over and over again, and 6 hours go by and nothing has happened. There's been no movement whatsoever. And so they up the dosage just a little bit. Another 6 hours go by, still nothing. We still have a plan, and we up the dosage a little bit more. We get to, I don't know, it's been 32 hours, every 6 hours upping the dosage, and at this point they're full bore, turn us up, and we get to a point we've kicked the other doctor out, the arrogant guy. You're not out of here because you're not going with the plan. He wants us to do all these other things. You're out, you gotta go. And this other woman comes in, and we tell her about the plan, and when we get to about 32 hours, she says, I think then if we're going to do this, you're going to need to start pushing at 32. This is 32 hours into it. And she hasn't taken any drugs. I, on the other hand, am completely stoned out of my mind. I swear to God, I'm kidding. You know, she starts to push, and it's not fully dilated. There's no way that this is, but you know what? We have a plan. We have a plan, and she will not give birth to a child that is too big for her to deliver. She pushes, I don't know, probably 2 hours. I'm going to get the times wrong, but for 2 hours, and really crowning just a little bit. And finally, there's some stress going on, and we're going to have to do it a different way. So, this is a little bit graphic, but they have to push the baby back up in as far, and we go into a C-section. Before you know it, we're hooked up to every machine in the building. She's having a C-section. I'm on the other side of the tarp that they put up there, and you know, Juliet's laying out here, her head's here, and her arms out that way, and you know, literally, I mean, it's Kaiser. We certainly got our $5 worth. That was for damn sure. 44 hours of labor later, Alexis Ophelia Pokorny comes into the world at 10.02 pounds, and the birthing plan was thrown out the window, and that is my story of reluctance for and I swear, now she's like 90 pounds. She's 17. She's gained 80 pounds in 17 years. It's the craziest thing. I mean, she's very petite, and but she came out like, man, she was huge. She was going to be a football player, for God's sake, but it didn't happen. All right, let me grab one of these right here. Let's grab I'll grab one in the middle. I don't want anybody to think I stacked the deck on you. All right, here we go. First storyteller for the evening. There's going to be Chard Loudon.
I know.
Did I say it right? Of course.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
But in the meantime, before he comes on up here, let me read a couple of these over here. Normally I read through these beforehand, but now I'm just randomly picking one out, and here we go. It is, in honor of reluctance, in a sentence, what are you putting off? Growing up. One more. Let's see, in a sentence, what are you putting off? Doing a living trust. Okay, well, yeah. If you wait much longer, it won't be a living one. I'll tell you that right there. Are you ready, Charlie?
Yeah.
There he is. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our stage, for the first time. And the mic is off to your left.
Good evening. Good evening. Nothing like being the first one on. But it's just as well, because these nice bright lights are making it so that all I can see is all these wonderful people sitting in the front row. I've always liked to travel, and I've always been fairly adventurous. So as a result, when about 3 years ago I lost most of my vision, I thought, well, I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to keep right on traveling. My partner, on the other hand, felt a little bit different about that. I said, let's go. I've never been to London. We've been talking about going to London. I want to go to London. She's going, you know, there's a lot of people. You don't like crowds. It's going to be crazy. So after quite a bit of reluctance on her part, I convinced her, yes. So we went to London. We were there for a week, and in the middle of July, which is right about the time all the schools are letting out, and everybody is in London. So it was really, really crowded. But after several days of sort of finding our way around, and every time we'd walk down the street, my partner would go, "Look out, don't run into those people." And she'd pull me aside and push me this way and that way, and I was getting really frustrated. But we decided, okay, we're going to do a walking tour. We went down to Greenwich, had a wonderful time, rode the ferry down the Thames, went to Greenwich, walked around, saw some museums. I stood on the Meridian, 1 foot in each time zone, which was great. And the afternoon's heading on, and so it was time to head for home. So we went up, and rather than take the ferry back, we decided we're going to take the train and then the tube, because we wanted to go to St. Paul's and some of the other wonderful places to go visit there. So we go to the train station, and this is the above-ground train, which we'd never been there. All of the train stations for the tube, they have a gate you have to go through. You put your Oyster card over this nice large yellow lighted dial there, and it beeps and the gates open and you walk through. Well, there wasn't anything like that in this particular train station, so I'm looking around, where are we gonna, so Oyster card is the card that pays your way, and you have to pay when you get on, or log in, and then log out when you get off, and it takes a certain amount of money off of your card. Well, I'm looking around for a place to register the card, and I can't figure it out. So I see some guys with these wonderful bright vests on, so I go over to one of them and I say, "Excuse me, where do we," and I'm holding the Oyster card in my hand, "where do we," oh, he goes, "Oh, here, let me help you," and he takes me down the stairs. And I'm going, but where do we, and he says, "No, get on the train. Where were you going, Tower Station?" "Yes, that's your train, go ahead, get on." I'm going, but, well, okay, so he obviously knows better than I do because he lives there, I assume. So we get on the train, and we're sitting there, and the train starts out from the station, and the conductor comes down the car, and he's asking everybody for their card. They hold their card out, and he runs his little machine over him. He says, "Oh, very good, very good." He gets to us, and we hold our card out, and he said, didn't you register in?" I said, "Well, I tried," but we weren't getting a lot of help with the directions, and quite frankly, I had a little trouble seeing things. So he says, "Well, this is no good at all because if you get down to the other train and you try to get off the train, it's not going to let you off, and you'll be fined, and all kinds of terrible things could happen." He says, "Here's what you do. This next station we come to," and he turns to my partner and he says, "Now, you're his carer, right?" She says, "Yes." He says, "Okay, so you take both cards and you get off the train, you run over to the machine and you register both cards and you get back on the train." So you can see where this is going. So my partner is going, "I don't think this is a very good idea." I said, "I don't either. Maybe we should both get off." No, it'll be fine." So reluctantly, she gets off the train with both cards. Now, so the scenario is I'm sitting on the train with no card at all. And she is off the train with both cards. She goes right past the machine. And the conductor's going, no. She walked right past it. And I said, "Well, of course she did. She doesn't know where it is. If we knew that, we would have done that before we got on the train." So she's somewhere, and the doors close, of course, and the train begins to move.
Oh, no.
The people sitting directly across from me say, "Excuse me, sir, do you realize you've just separated a blind man from his carer?" oh dear. And he's going, oh, damn, bloody hell. So, and in the meantime, I'm not really terribly worried, because for the first time since I've arrived in the UK, I don't have anybody who's terribly upset about whether I'm going to trip over something or run into somebody. And I'm actually really kind of happy about it. So he comes, he goes, here's what you do. Are you transferring? I said, yes, at Tower Station. He goes, so when we get to Tower Station, I go, yes. Get off, sit on the bench, and she'll figure it out. I said, yes, she will. Very comfortably, I get off at Tower Station, and I'm sitting there, just actually having a really good time thinking about this, about what am I going to say? So, needless to say, several trains later, here she comes, frantic. I said, but wasn't that easy? She goes, actually, it really was. So the rest of the trip was fairly mellow. I didn't get yanked and pulled, and because, you know, being reluctant sometimes is just the way to go. It's Chard, just like you got.
One more time for Chard, ladies and gentlemen. A few people that I always like to thank when we're here are the folks who run this lovely facility right here, Bill and Karen Reading, for hosting us here at Sonoma. If you have not had the port, you must. Not tonight, but because I don't think, you can't serve that here, can you?
Okay.
Oh, well then, have it tonight for crying out loud. Drink up, everybody. Crying out loud. You're sitting here, so you're not driving anywhere, so drink up. Especially Chard. Of course, I know, and I'm hoping he's not driving anywhere. But what I would like you to do, Chard, is pick a number between 1 and, we actually have 7 people left in here, so we have a full show. So between 1 and 7, choose one.
3.
1, 2, and 3. Our next storyteller for the evening is, I think it says Nancy Campbell, is that right? Somebody Campbell. Molly. I'm sorry. I'm gonna call you Nancy from now on.
Okay.
From this point forward, you will now be known as Nancy, except on PCA, where we will. Hang on one sec. I have 2 little things to read before I, Yeah, you get to warm up in the on-deck circle over there, and I have a couple of these to read. And let's see. Actually, this one here may be long enough just to read on its own. In a sentence, what are you putting off? I'm putting off cleanup, driver repair, fixing my truck, going to the dump, setting up a hot tub, making the door for the shop, fixing the porch light, setting up my computer, to the other side, and taking the dog for a walk, and giving my true love a loving, heartfelt 10-minute kiss. Wow. That one you should not wait on right there. I will actually now bring up, that was long enough to bring up Molly. Please welcome to the stage for the very first time also, Molly Campbell. Come on, Molly. You can do whatever you like.
Feels better.
It's your stage for 5 minutes.
Okay, scary. So hi, I'm Molly Moo. Some people know me as Molly Moo. I have an ice cream truck.
Cool.
And so I'm very comfortable in my truck, but it's a little different standing up here. So reluctance would be telling a story because I'm a sister, a little sister. And I lost my big sister about, in 2000, right after 9/11, so 2011, 12? No. 2002. Two. And my sister was quite an amazing character. Never had any reluctance to stand up here with a microphone and just be her fabulous self. And we both had babies right around the same time. She had a daughter early on when she was in her 20s. And my sister lives in New York, or lived in New York, and was a cabaret singer. And quite glamorous, quite fun, quite intelligent. And I called her, and I'm not exactly sure why this article jumped out at me, but this was in the, I'd say, mid to late 80s, and there was an article in the Chronicle about ADD, attention deficit disorder. And I thought, maybe we should just keep an eye on this. I don't know what this is, but. So we would have a talk every week or so, and she would call me, or I would call her. I phoned her at that point, and I said, hey sis, there's something I want to tell you about. It's called attention deficit disorder. And I rarely had a chance to say much because she was quite outgoing and enough about you, let's talk about me kind of gal. So she said, attention deficit disorder, oh my God. I have never felt like I've received enough attention. I haven't. Completely serious, completely earnest, and I about died. My sister never got enough attention. She was like the first of, we had teenage parents. So, oh my God, I didn't know what to say. And I'm the little sister, so I'm not supposed to know as much and be insightful or intelligent or pretty or anything. And I just, I think it has a different meaning. So here's to my sister Vanessa, who was a wonderful cabaret singer in New York, who is no longer with us, but she's here. And I love this story, and it makes everybody laugh because I think we all can relate to it. So thank you.
Molly Campbell, ladies and gentlemen. Molly, pick a number between 1 and 6, if you would.
5.
We'll just go 1, 2, 3. We'll go from that way, and it'll be that one right there. The next one is my wife, Juliette Pokorny, will come on up and tell her tale of something. There you go. But in the meantime, another little thanks that I have to give out. Thanks to, first of all, PCA for coming out and filming. Also, I'd like to thank the printer that does our cards for us. That would be Electric Crayon, and they are out of Santa Rosa. He actually lives here in town, but the office is up in Santa Rosa. So Electric Crayon for all your printing needs. They do a very nice job for us, and those little golf claps are good for them as well, which is really that's fun. You don't want to disturb anybody with your clapping. In a sentence, what are you putting off? Laundry. That's it. That's it. I put off finishing the laundry is what I do. I don't have any problem washing it. It's the folding and putting away. And I was informed at one point in my life that the laundry actually isn't done until it's folded and put away. Did you know that? It's just clean. It's done, right? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Juliette Pokorny.
Hello. Let's see. For my 20s and 30s, for about 15 years, I made my living as a stage manager in live theater. So I had the pleasure of working in small theater, in large theater. For those people who follow Theater Angels in America, was originally done in a small theater called the Eureka. I happened to be working there at the time when that happened. So he actually wrote that play with actors in mind, and so I knew all those people. Worked at the Magic for several years as a resident during the time in which budding playwrights like Octavio Salas and David Ives were just getting their careers started. And Maria Irene Fornez, for those who are real diehard theater people, I got to work with her. And then, of course, ending my last 7 years, I worked at the American Conservatory Theater, working on large shows, and got to actually be there when the Gary reopened. That was part of the first season. So that was all very exciting. But after I started having kids, working nights and weekends, I got to a point when I was pregnant with my second daughter, which we all know about what happened the first time. The second one, when I got pregnant with her, I thought, oh my God, like, can I do this? Like, this is a really, 7 nights or 6 nights a week, and days and nights, and it switches, and it's just a very hard life. And so I decided after 15 years that I would retire from stage management, and I had no idea what I was going to do. So we move up to Sonoma County, and I get to be a stay-at-home mom for 2 years. In the meantime, around the second year, I start to realize, Dave's working like 3 jobs or something just so I can stay home, and I got to be a mom, which is what I wanted. But I started to think, like, what does a retired stage manager do? Like, what's the next phase for us? It's a very specialized field. So I went to a career counselor. And I remember filling out all the paperwork and meeting with this person weekly, and there was all kinds of questions, and it was like the pie, there's like this circle, and they sort of define you as creative or analytical, and of course most people are sort of like pie shaped this way, but for some reason mine's like all across, like I'm creative and then analytical and nothing in between, right? And so the guy was like head scratching, like, I don't know what you do. And so I was like looking into like library science and paralegal, and I kept thinking, well, I'm really good with artists. And after about 3 months, he said, you know what? Barring the schedule, like, that was a perfect job for you. Darn it. So I go home sort of thinking, what am I going to do with my life? And I get a call from an old friend from theater who's now working at the #1 animation studio in the world, Pixar Animation Studios, and says, listen, we have a department here at Pixar that's never gone well. Like, it's whoever manages this department, we go through 2 or 3 of them for every movie. They get fired, they're overwhelmed, they quit. So we're thinking, let's shake it up and get like a stage manager in there, like really, get that thing going, get it organized. So what do you say? You interested in coming in and interviewing? Wow. So this is sort of meeting all my needs, right? So creative people, I get to organize Monday through Friday, weekends, evenings off. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I go in, I meet with a lot of people over a few months, and then ultimately, Dave and I have a decision to make. Like, there's no guarantee I'm going to be any better than all the other people that got fired or quit, right? Like, so I'm walking into a whole new field. I've never done it before. I don't know anything about animation. But how many times does the #1 animation studio in the world call you, right? So we were sort of like, well, what the heck, so Dave quits his job because I was very reluctant to go back to work knowing that one of us wasn't home with the kids. It was just sort of a commitment we had. So we have no idea what we're doing, right? But we just sort of blindly, like, he quits his 3 jobs and I go to work and he stays home. And I am so worried because Miranda, especially, Alexis had a crazy life with Dave and I, him doing comedy and me doing theater and, friends and all kinds of crazy stuff. But Miranda, I was home. Like, I didn't really believe in attachment parenting, but it sort of happened, like we were always together. And so I was like, oh boy, how's this gonna go? How are they gonna transition? Are they gonna be okay? And so after about 2 weeks, I remember coming home one day, and I say to Alexis, who's about 6 at the time, and Miranda's about 2.5, I said, how was your day? She said, well, we really fought. We fought about something today. I thought, I knew it. This is what happens when I go back to work, right? They're fighting, right? This is what happens. And I say, well, tell me about your fight. She says, well, I said to her, you are more beautiful than I am. And she said, no, you are more beautiful than me. And I'm thinking, I think they're going to be okay, right? And so I say, well, how did that end? And she says, well, Mom, I waited till she fell asleep, and I leaned in, I whispered in her ear, you are more beautiful than me. Thank you.
And they're probably home arguing right now.
Not about that.
Pretty much guessing it's not about that anymore. They're teenagers. So. Hey, Juliet, pick one between 1 and 5, if you would.
I'll pick 5.
5. I'm going to go that side right there. We're going to go with, let's see. That is, I think think it says. Yes, it does. Elaine Stanley, there she is. Elaine, you'll be next. Yay. Hold that one up so I don't call it again. Unless you have 2 stories. All right. In a sentence, what are you putting off? I'm putting off my celebrity status. I've been doing that for a while myself. In a sentence, what are you putting off? Writing my novel. That's all of us, isn't it? Every single one of us in this room is putting that off. All right, Elaine, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, there you are. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Elaine Stanley.
Hello. Hello. Well, I'm a child of the world, a gypsy child, an Air Force brat. My father was in the Air Force, and I moved every 2 years in my growing up life. And that may seem like the household of total chaos, but actually some things were very much the same. My father was very strict. Everybody had to be at the dinner table at 6 o'clock every night. And a house was only a building with a roof over it that kept the rain off. Home was where the family was. So I knew I came from a loving family, but strict. When I was 6 years old, we were living in England. We were living on an air base where you sent your kids out to play for the day, and they came in at night. And I was out there playing all day. We were supposed to ask our friends' mothers what time it was to get home in time. If we came in after 6, you were sent to your room without dinner. Well, after 2 weeks of coming in and missing dinner twice, I decided when I was playing with my sister one day that that sugar bowl in the tea set was pretty big. It was about a cup full. So I snuck it to the dinner table with me one night, and we were having my favorite dinner, spaghetti. And at the time, I didn't like the red sauce. I just liked butter on it. So I very carefully snuck the spaghetti off my plate when no one was looking and filled my sugar bowl and put the lid on, and then ate my fill and knew the next time I came in late I was going to have dinner. Snuck it upstairs. Now my sister and I shared a bedroom, but we had bunk beds. She had the bottom bunk and I had the top bunk, and you know that wooden box over the curtains made a perfect shelf for treasures. So I crawled to the head of my bed. I buried that sugar bowl back against the wall as far as I could so that nobody in the room could see it. And then, I don't know, a couple of weeks went by and I was really good about getting in and getting to dinner on time. But one day, it happened that I got playing too long and came in late. Got sent to my room without dinner, and I was lamenting about it and just feeling really bad, and then I remembered the sugar bowl. I didn't have to go hungry. So I climbed up the bunk, headed to bed, and I lifted the lid off that silver sugar bowl, and I dropped it and ran off the bed. It was a big green hairy monster. It was awful. I saw it move. I was sure it moved. It was going to get me. I reluctantly stayed in the room until my sister came up from after dinner, and we got playing, and I kind of forgot about it until my parents said time for bed, and I refused to get into bed. My parents tried everything. My mother says, "What's wrong? What's up there?" Nothing, there's nothing up there. I don't want to go, I just don't want to go. I begged my sister to switch beds for me for the night. Let me sleep in the bottom bunk. You can have the top. It's really neat. You can see everything. No, she wasn't switching. So finally my mother sent my father up. He crawls up, he's looking around. There's no spiders up here. He's looking around and goes, what's this? We're all sitting in the bed. He lifted the lid and I start screaming, "Don't bring it down here! Don't get it near me! Keep it away! Keep it away!" And he laughed. He started laughing so hysterically. My mother's jumping up and down going, "What is it? What is it?" He came down, they both looked in the sugar bowl, and both of them were laughing. And I, in the meantime, am cowering in the corner. "Keep it away! It bites! Keep it away!" And when we finally calmed down, My reluctance to go to bed was cured when they then explained to me where and how mold grows. My first lesson in mold at age 6.
One more time for Elaine, ladies and gentlemen. Elaine, how about a number between 1 and 4?
I'll take 4.
4. One there. Let's see what we got. We're going with Elaine Silver. There you go. A couple of little quick things. We have the cards that tell you the themes for the next couple of months right here. They're out there, or they're in other places around the room. She has them out there, and if not, I have a few over here at the end of the evening. There's that. And also, it says on here to like us on the Facebook. If you guys do Facebook, which I know some of you do because I communicate with you that way, but that's the only way I advertise this show, Facebook and emails. So there's an email list sitting out there on Facebook because it's free. So there you go, and that's how I can still afford to give $50 to the winner of the evening right there. So there you go. So if you would go ahead and like us on the Facebook, or put us on your email and let me know what your email is, and I will send you an email every month and tell you about the show. All right. In a sentence, what are you putting off? Painting the outside of my house. Any takers? Yeah. Too bad this is anonymous. Darn it. Elaine, are you ready? Where are you? You're over here now. Elaine Silver, ladies and gentlemen. How about a huge round of applause?
Hi. I had this wonderful daughter. She's going to be 22 on Saturday. She, in her short life, has already been so accomplished. She's a published poet. She's on the radio every week on our hip-hop show in New York. She's just kind of fearless and fantastic. But she was an extremely challenging child to raise because she was very, very bright. She taught herself to read at 3. She told me also at 3 that she did not have to listen to me because she basically knew everything. And when she decided that she didn't want to do something, that was it. She didn't want to do it. For whatever reason, I couldn't figure out, there was no real pattern to it. Sometimes she would go to her grandparents' house, no problem. Other times she would kick and scream and just throw the most awful tantrum. And you know, as a parent, you have to pick your battles. So I had to decide each time, and this really happened quite frequently, that she would decide not to do something. I had to decide each time whether to make her do it or not. So, yes, you gotta go to your grandparents. Everybody's gonna be there. So kicking and screaming, throw her in the car seat, head off. Within a few minutes, she'd be fine. Okay, you don't want to say hi to my friends at the dinner party? That's fine. You can lock yourself in the room. That's okay. It was exhausting to deal with her. Then we did have, you know, lots of fun times. And one summer, or actually many summers, we actually belonged to a swim club in our neighborhood. It was so sweet. It was like 35 families to walk down this little lane with trees. And all the kids played together nicely, and all the parents sat together. It was really quite lovely. And my daughter had friends, and my son had friends, and you know, it was great. And she was about 5 at the time, and you know, she was a really, really good swimmer. Both my kids were little fishes. You know, they swam underwater, they were fine. But my daughter would not take the deep water test. So that meant that when all the kids were swimming in the deep water, she wanted to go in, and I had to go in with her. She didn't want to be with the babies anymore in the shallow end. So June, July, I'm in the water with her. Okay, and then it got really tiresome, and she wanted to stay in longer, and I didn't want to, and I wanted to sit with my friends, and she wanted to play more, and it was getting to be a tug of war. And I said, look, honey, why don't you just take the deep water test and be done with it? Then you can stay in for hours, the whole day. I won't bother you. I won't even ask you to drink anything. No sunscreen, just go. She said, oh, okay, but you know, I don't like jumping in. I said, well, we'll practice. So we practiced, and it was fine. And And then, so she's going to take the test, and Josh, who, you know, was very cute and all the little girls loved, and he was going to be evaluating her, so she was all excited about that. And so she has to jump in. She's not jumping. Mommy, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I said, come on, sweetheart, you've done it. You swim like a fish. What are you talking about? Just jump in and, you know, do the test. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Now, all of you who are sitting here, and parents, you know what it's like, right? Other parents are looking, everybody's insecure, everyone's judging. What would you do? Oh my God. You gotta pick your battles. And I was done. I was done. I wanted her to have a nice rest of the summer, and I wanted to have a nice rest of the summer too. So she was gonna, goddammit, take that test. She stands there, and my daughter has a really, she's a teeny little thing, teeny. She's like me, teeny. And she's big voice, and she starts this histrionics at the side of the pool. You would think that you know, Europe was falling, really. And crying and screaming, and all the other mothers, everybody's very quiet, looking at me, what are you gonna do, what are you gonna do? And I decided that this was it. She was gonna take that test. And I knew that her reluctance was really just like this far from doing it, because otherwise my daughter was very, very sure of herself, and if she didn't want to stand at the side of the pool, she'd have taken those little legs and run into the woods, and I would not have seen her for hours. But she stood there crying and screaming, I can't, I can't, I can't. 20 minutes later, 20 minutes later, and I'm hearing the thoughts of the parents saying, oh God, such a good mother really sticks with it. Oh my God, such a bad mother, can you believe she'd do that to her kid? Oh my God, I'm gonna call social services when I go home and tell them about her, because there were no cell phones then. Finally, she jumps in. She jumps in, she had to swim underwater the length of the pool and back. She, little fish, she'd done that, no problem. She passes the test, she throws her arms around me and says, Mommy, I did it, thank you so much. Vindication, right? So I actually was on the phone last week with a friend of mine who was there at the pool that day, and she was asking me about my daughter, and I was telling her, she had just won this literary prize, and I was telling her about it. She goes, oh my God. And remember that day at the pool?
Thanks, Silver, ladies and gentlemen. One more time, Elaine, how about a number between 1 and 3? Well, any one of 1, 2, or 3.
A 2.
That is the number between 1 and 3. That is going to be Bradford Rex will be our next storyteller right there. And again, a couple other thank yous. I should write them all down so I get them all at once. Mark Prell over at KRCB for letting us use the audio recording device over there. I'd like to thank them. And also for the sound system, Russ Wigglesworth up at Sonoma State let us borrow his sound system and has so far every month we've been here. So how about a nice round of applause for this? And before we bring Bradford up, in a sentence, what are you putting off? Paying bills. Again, that's all of us in here. We're not writing our novel. We're not paying our bills. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our stage Bradford Rex. Here he is.
2.3 seconds doesn't seem very long, but start to think of all the things that can happen in 2.3 seconds, and this is the calculation. John Pagenkoff asked me. John Pagenkoff. We were on I-68, which is where the bridge crosses over Cheat Lake, and he asked me, what's the calculation for an accelerating body? And I said, I can't do math. And he said, I know you can't do math, I just want the calculation. And I said, I don't know, 3.2 meters per second, and I don't get the second per second. How does that happen? So, while Jimmy and Delacardo, Michael Hales, and Roger Reddick are having a discussion of whether or not they're going to do a 1.5 reverse in tuck or full layout position while John Pegenkoff and I have just agreed to jump off this bridge. Jump. You said we were going to jump off the bridge. We're going to jump off the bridge. Well, how high is it? It's 80 feet. And John Pegenkoff has done with a rock on the bridge, on the abutment, he's done some math, and he looks at me and he says, 2.3 seconds rounding up. It's actually like 2.67. And we climb up onto the abutment and people are going by and blowing their horns because it's a major thoroughfare, I-68 is. If you haven't been there, there's no reason, don't go. There's absolutely no reason to go, but we're standing up on the abutment of the bridge and Jimmy and Delcardo looks at me and says, you're gonna count off, we're gonna go on 3. And I was, oh, for heaven's sakes. Roger Reddick looks at me and says, you seem reluctant. No, I really want to do this. We've talked about this for some time. We've talked about this for all of 3 hours. We have gone over as 18-year-olds would do. We have looked at everything. We know there's enough water underneath. John Pegenkoff, who's the smart guy in the group, who has calculated it's going to be 2.3 seconds. Count it off, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. You're sacked in the backfield. John Pegenkoff says what we really need to look at is make sure that there's no boats coming underneath with water skiers because the lake is just packed, and that adds another bit of anxiety. And thrill as we look down at the lake. I'm looking at my shorts because I'm freshly off to college, and my mother decided I need to have a nice pair of shorts, and she's taken a pair of my jeans and cut them with pinking shears. So I look like a hippie Peter Pan. And Roger Reddick, the New York State champion from the trampoline champion who's on the diving team, he's concerned that I seem reluctant. And again, you've got a lot of things to think about in 2.3 seconds. And Jimmy Delcardo says, count down. I say 1, 2. Michael Hales goes. He has decided he's going to do a 1.5 in tuck. He's going on 2, so we have another 1 Mississippi to go. And as I jump, John Pegenkoff jumps, Roger Reddick does a full reverse in layout. It's very lovely. Jimmy Delcardo does a pike position 1.5. And on the way down, I remember that my center of gravity is up here, not down here, and that's why the divers, as opposed to John Pegenkoff, who's a rugby player, Stoopnagel, and myself, a swimmer who says, I just want to jump unless it's off a block this high. I'm going to jump and I'm going to hit feet first, so I'm going down towards the water, going this way. On the way down, I realized the word I'm looking for that I want to tell Roger Reddick about is not reluctance, but reticence, which is a parallel term. I was reticent to tell you guys, come on, I'm standing on a bridge with jeans that have been cut off by my mother with pinking shears. I don't want to stand here any longer. We should really go now. I am committed. Let's go, let's go. We hit the water and it's fine, and we swim to the shore. And Cheat Lake, if you haven't been there, don't go. But we didn't buy beer for 2 years at West Virginia University because we're always known as the guy that jumped off the bridge. And we did that over and over and over again. And 3 weeks ago, I found myself, I flew into Pittsburgh, I got picked up by some people that for some reason thought it was a good idea to pay me money to do something. And we had to drive to Western Maryland, and we drove through Morgantown, West Virginia, and we drove over the Cheat Lake Bridge. And one of the guys in the back seat, a nice fellow, and I would hate to have this guy go sideways, but he just asked, good golly, look at this bridge, look at that nice lake down there. Do you think anybody's ever jumped off of it? And I had to turn around because when you're tall, it's nice, people put you in the front seat. So I had to turn around and say, oh yeah. Congrats, ladies and gentlemen.
We have two left, Brad. Right or left?
I was hoping you'd ask me to pick a number between 1 and 2.
All right, pick a number.
Two.
Two. One is not between. Does that mean, that means left? I'm going with left on that one. Karen Reading, one of our hosts here this evening, is our next to last person. And before I bring her up, we have in a sentence, what are you putting off? One sentence, impossible. It's like that other one that just went over to the other side, continued next month. You know. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our stage Karen Reading. Here she is.
So, I have a story. I'm a little reluctant to tell it, but everybody else told theirs, so I'll tell mine. So a few years ago, I had a story to tell, and it was a story I didn't really want to tell, but I didn't really have a choice. So I thought, well, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to retain some control over this story. And so first I thought, well, I need to tell this story to my daughter and to my aging parents, so maybe I should practice. So I invited my best friends to have dinner with me, and Bill and I went to meet them at a restaurant. On the way, we talked about the story and, you know, how I was going to tell it, what I was going to say. I was pretty nervous. We got to the restaurant, we sat down, and they were all enthusiastic. They wanted to know what I was going to tell them, and they were kind of encouraging, you know, just chatting, waiting to hear my story. And so I told them my story, and they said, "We thought you were going to say you were pregnant." I said, "No, I had breast cancer." Oops, a little bit different story. So on the way home, we thought, well, we better rethink how this story comes out, because clearly that didn't quite work. So a couple of weeks later, I had a plan to go visit my parents and my daughter. And I thought, oh, how exactly are we going to tell them this? And they already knew we were coming to visit. It was something planned. So we talked about it. We got off the plane. They picked us up at the airport. We made the long trip back to their house. And then we sat down around the table and took a deep breath. And Bill took a deep breath. And then I told them I had breast cancer. And they obviously were surprised. But I said, it's all okay. It's under control. We have a plan. It's fine. So we went home. I started to tell some of my friends. Again, I thought, okay, well, this is a story I have control over. I really just was reluctant to tell everybody what was going on, and I had a plan. You know, I had hats and scarves, and I thought, this is great. Nobody's going to even know, because I didn't want them to know. Then I started chemo. Then I lost all my hair, and I thought, okay, well, maybe they're going to know, but still I thought I had it kind of under control. And a little bit after that, my daughter decided to come home to visit. She wanted to make sure that when I was telling her I was okay, that I wasn't lying. And so she came to visit, and she brought with her a little book of temporary tattoos, little butterfly tattoos, and she brought those along. And so I was concerned about how I was going to spin the story for her. So I thought, oh, you know, I'll just keep this hat on. It was a great hat. She won't really realize that I don't have hair under there. I was pretty proud of myself. And the first thing she said is, you need to take that hat off. It scares me. I thought, okay, well, that's not going to work. So I did. And then she kind of convinced me that I needed to go out and face the world without that hat, because she thought it wasn't really doing me any favors. So we put one of those little temporary tattoos on the back of my bare skull behind my right ear, and I thought, all right, well, okay, let's see what happens. So we went to the market, and she came with me, and I was, you know, I thought, okay, is everyone going to be staring at me? What's going to happen? What is this going to look like? And I walked in the market, and I was sort of scanning to see, okay, are they staring? Who's looking? I don't have any hair. It's kind of obvious. But no, nothing happened. And then we strolled down the fruit and vegetable aisle, and a little girl kind of pushed her way right up in front of me, stopped with her little child-sized cart right in front of me. She looked at me, and I looked at her, and she kind of smiled, and she turned to her mom, and she said, "She don't got no hair." Well, okay, it's pretty obvious. I guess that's true. So I smiled at her, and I thought, oh, all right, this is not so bad. then I pushed on down, a few more aisles and still kind of watching, and I saw this woman go by me. She knew I didn't have any hair. She could see, obviously. She smiled, she went past, and out the corner of my eye, I saw her kind of turn around, do a little double take, because she saw the butterfly out of the corner of her eye, and she smiled. And all of a sudden I thought, this is gonna be okay. Those butterflies are a good symbol of transformation and hope, and that became my symbol. And I had one of those little temporary tattoos on all through the treatment until my hair grew back. Maybe I have one now, I don't know, you'll never know. But it was all okay, and it gave me a lot of courage, and so the story that I was reluctant to tell was out there. Everybody could see it, and you know what? It was all okay. So that is my story of reluctance.
Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Karen, pick this one.
Oh, wait, I want that one.
All right, this one. Good call. Very nicely done. Leslie Scatcherd is our final storyteller for this evening. Just a reminder that next month our show will be here on November 7th, and the theme is art. That could be a friend of yours named Art. That could be artwork. That could be any sort of art, okay? So 5-minute true story told live on stage right here without notes. Come on back on the 7th. And right before I bring Leslie up, I have one more of these for the evening. And in a sentence, what are you putting off? I'm putting off coming up with a good story to tell. Ladies and gentlemen, Leslie Scatcherd. Welcome, Leslie.
Oh, the thrill of it all. At 20, I was the first of my group of friends to be planning my wedding. Thank you very much. I had met an older man. He was 29 to my 20. His life experience was dazzling to me. And so when he asked me to marry him, of course I said yes. I mean, it was so romantic. There were wedding gowns to try on, and china patterns to pick out, and vows to write. I mean, I was thrilled. It was so great. I was willing to transfer colleges, switch my major, ditch college roommates, all to become a Mrs. So, as the September date got closer and closer, I noticed that I had this little rock growing in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't shake it. And I think, looking back, I think it started when we went looking for apartments. And I realized what kind of apartment we could afford at that time, which was small and dingy. And then I started looking at this man I was going to marry. And I realized I couldn't really be myself 100% with him. And then I started realizing that he wasn't that good at holding down a job. He'd had 3 in the year that I had known him. So let's just say I was feeling a little reluctant about the whole wedding thing, which quickly turned to complete panic. I did not want to do this. But there was this box of invitations that were already addressed, and they were sitting there on the dining room floor. My wedding gown was in the closet. We had put down a lot of money, deposits, on churches and halls and florists and caterers. My bridesmaids had already done their final fittings. This train was rolling down the tracks, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. So I just figured I was going to have to get married, and then I would just divorce him a couple months later. That was my big plan. I couldn't talk to my mother about it, and we were really close. But I was so embarrassed that I had made such a colossal mistake. And I didn't have the words to tell her. I couldn't do it. So one day, it was actually 1 month to the day before the date of the wedding. And my mom and I were sitting in the den. We did this every day. We sat in the den, we each had our spot, and we would check in, and we'd do like a little recap of our day with each other, which was always wonderful. And we were not talking about the wedding at all. And out of the blue, my mother says to me, very casually, you know, if you didn't want to get married, you know you don't have to. I gaped at her, and I'm staring at her face. I'm trying to figure out if she's kidding, but all I'm getting back from her is just this honesty, this openness, you know, this candor. And I just burst into tears. I mean, these were tears I had been holding in for months. And I told her, oh my gosh, all my fears and how I did not want to get married. And all she said was, no problem. And she quietly went about canceling the entire event.
Wow.
No mention was made of the money that they lost, the embarrassment, the mistake. There was no judgment whatsoever. The love and wisdom that my mother showed me during that little period of time has stuck with me forever. And I have to say, it is the single best gift of love that anyone has ever given me.
That's the schedule, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever happened to that guy?
He went to New York to be an actor.
All right, we are going to, what I'd like you all to do right now before we actually pull a number ticket here, of course, grab your little green ticket. That would be one thing. But then I would like if I could get the house lights to come up and all the storytellers to actually just stand where you are so that everybody can take a look around, see their storytellers once again, and then, oh yeah, do that. Don't forget to do that. But in the meantime, also, I want you in your head, because when I pull the number, I want you to just say, that one, that was my favorite right there. No hesitation. Right now, you should all know which one was your favorite storyteller for the evening, and I swear the rest of them won't take it personally. I swear. But I'm going to pull one of the other, there are no ties. And there's no crying in baseball either, by the way. Let's see. 646-5257. Who do you choose? Who's your favorite? The last one?
Yeah.
Leslie Scatcherd is on the little something for you right there. There you go.
Money, you'll be money.
Yeah, that's money. Don't tell everybody. The one thing you should tell everybody, though, is we will be back here November 7th. We will be celebrating a new president at that point. There won't be any debate. I believe the election is the night before. So come on down here and let's drink, either in celebration or in misery. Well, yeah, it'll be it'll be the next president. Okay, it could be the same one again, but it's still a new term. All right, there you go. This technicality. See if you pick the winner next month. But please tell your friends to come on down. Check us out on the Facebook page. I post throughout the month different pictures of tonight's show and things like that. Also, go ahead and put your email out there on the list. And come on back here next month. You guys are a great crowd, and I really thank you guys for coming out tonight. Thanks a lot. We're good for playing. Good night, folks.